everyone. Thank you so much for listening to Relatively Sane. This is Jessica Kirson, and I'm hungry. I just wanted to say that. Meanwhile, I just had my second breakfast, and I'm still hungry. That is not a joke. I'm not saying it just to get a laugh. I also want to say that I have a complete goatee. Like, there's not even... I realized from this quarantine that I grow a nice goatee. Like, it's pretty nice. I have a mustache, a beard, it's the whole thing. And I realized, you know what, just let it all grow out because I just want to see how much hair I can grow. I have fine hair and it's not that dark, but no one's getting up close anyway. I mean, I am doing Zoom shows, so I am afraid that someone's going to watch me and be listening to me and then look up and be like, oh my God, does she have, what, is that a beard? Like, they are going to see it. I noticed that my eyebrows look a lot thicker, not thinner, thicker. They look very thick. Basically, I look like, I don't know, like an animal. That's what I'm starting to look like, an animal. And I'm eating like an animal, and I'm thinking like an animal. And I have to tell you, I think people are starting to go a little crazy. I mean, I knew this was going to happen. I don't know what that's going to mean, but they are starting to get a little crazy, and everyone looks really hostile. I mean, sometimes I'll just go for a drive, and I'm watching people, like I'll just be at a red light and I'll see, and it's a tough time. It's a tough time for so many people. We all need to stay patient and understand that everyone is struggling, or most people are struggling, and it's not personal. It took me a very long time to understand that and realize that as a comedian, when I would look at the audience and I'd see some miserable person and take it personally. And then I realized, like, maybe, I don't know, maybe their dog passed away, or maybe they ate too much and they're gassy, or maybe their mother wasn't around. I don't know what it is, but it's not about me. I had to realize that. And I think we all need to think about that a lot, that what other people's opinions are really have nothing to do with you. I don't even know what I'm saying. I say this every time. I'm literally just rattling off shit. And I just am trying to decide what I'm going to eat. I had rice cakes with peanut butter and a banana. And then I had 2 pieces of cheese and almonds. And I think now I'm going to have a flank steak and new potatoes. I'm joking. I don't even eat steak, and my potatoes are not new. They're old. They're from like 2 weeks ago. My potatoes have grown a potato onto them. I love you. I love you guys. I'm sending you so much positivity, positive vibes, everything. If I could send you all a basket of cheese and fruit, I would. And nuts and some crackers. Isn't it great to get a basket? I love getting a good basket. I mean, it sucks when you get a shitty one. Like, sometimes edible arrangements are great, and sometimes it's like, what the fuck was this person thinking? Why did they just send me cantaloupe in the shape of a flower? I don't want this. Wouldn't it be great if you could send an edible arrangement and it's just like 8 pieces of pizza? I don't know. It should be something else besides just fruit and chocolate. I think so. Maybe like sex toys. Maybe someone can send an edible arrangement of just all different kinds of sex toys. That would be cool. I'm going to do that. I'm going to send that to my Aunt Sheila. I love you. Thank you so much for listening. You guys are going to love this episode. I am sending you so much love, and thank you for spreading the word. Hashtag always be silly. Hashtag Kirson person. You guys are the best. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast, Relatively Sane. I am here with my very good friend, Billy Gardell.
Hi, Jessica. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Billy. Did I say your name wrong?
No, you said it right.
There was a split second when I just thought, I think I said his name wrong.
No, and I think, no, it's Billy Gardell. You did it perfectly. And thank you. And as comics, how many times have we heard our name, Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Billy Gardell, Billy Gardell, Billy Gravel, Billy
Gravel.
Billy. You know, it doesn't matter.
Billy
But
Germaphobe.
you got it
Please
right.
welcome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, everyone calls me Jessica Kirson, and it's
I know.
Kirson.
I know you are quite the respected comic, and
That's
it's
very
nice to
sweet.
talk to you. And I hope you know that about yourself.
Thank you.
Comics really respect you. No, and well earned. And you're a great person. You know, we met and immediately got along when we did that Cam Neely thing, and yeah, I'm glad to be here today.
Me too. I listen, thank you so much. And I'm so glad that I worked so hard for so many years to be doing Zoom shows.
Yeah, we're at the point now. I think comics. I think we would just do a show at a fucking Walgreens if there was a stage and we were behind the screen. You know, we need to get it out, and it's hard, man. It's hard.
It's real. It's creatively, it's hard. I'm worried about money and my future, but I'm literally. It's the creative part is the hardest part for me. Just not doing stand up. It's
like
hard.
In what way? What do you mean?
Well, because it's therapy for me.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm so used to standing there and like if I'm miserable, having a hard time, and then I do a show and I feel so much better. It
is. It's like popping that pimple in your brain when you get up there and get it out. And then if it works when you're getting it out, well, that's even better. You know, it's so funny. I even after 30 years, I still have those nights where you come off stage and you're like, God, I love this so much.
Yeah.
And then you have a bad show and you're like, what have I done with my life? Why did I do that? Why do I do this to myself? It's such a weird cycle, man.
I know. And you started at a really young age. Were you like 17? We're around the same age. So were you, how old are you?
Yeah, I was 17. I started, my first open mic night was December 28th, 1987.
Oh my God.
Right. And I did an open mic night at a comedy club in Orlando called Bonkers Comedy Club. Everything had a S or a Z at the end of it back in the late 80s. It was either Nutties or Wackies or Zanies. You know, just that's what it was.
Yeah.
And I got to start at a really amazing time in stand-up comedy because there was just so many incredible headliners that came through that club, man. And not just guys that were famous, but guys that were great at it. Like, and we used to, you know, we had a pretty eclectic open mic night. I mean, a lot of us ended up very successful, and we were very blessed. Like, and we had kind of a triangle down there. There was Orlando, there was St. Petersburg, and then there was West Palm Beach. And in that clique, there was Daryl Hammond, there was Jim Brewer, Tom Rhodes, Larry the Cable Guy, Carrot Top.
Really?
And we were just, you know, Tom Rhodes was like the guy we all wanted to be.
Yeah,
like,
he's amazing. I love him.
He was just so cool, and he would blow into town because he was already a working comic. But Tom had an extra coolness about him because, you know, he was literary. He was well read. And
yes.
Like he hipped us all. Tom was the reason that I think Tom Rhodes, looking back now, is the reason Orlando wasn't filled with hacks. Because Tom was telling us about, you know, finding music and finding inspiration and reading Kerouac and really chasing down a mastery of the language, which I never got. Like, some comics are brilliant. They're brilliant at constructing the bit. Some guys are great on stage, which is kind of what I fall into. I'm a really good performer. My words aren't as good as my performance. They just never have been. But I'm okay with that. That's who I am, you know. But the pursuit of that made me better. And he really hipped us to so many. And the other thing was, man, he would always say too that, you know, we got a chip on our shoulder because we're starting in Orlando, Florida. So we'd come up to New York to do a show, and they go, "Where are you from?" You go, "Well, I started in Orlando." And they go, "Oh," because all that had come out of Orlando was like jugglers and bad magicians, and so we kind of took it upon ourselves to try to get really good, or as good as we could be at it, so that we could kind of represent our little city.
So that's awesome. So you started at 17, and then did you go away to college, or did you just you did? Where'd you go?
No, I did not.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I didn't. I didn't go to college. No, I knew by 10th grade there was just no way I was going to college. I was failing everything. I think I graduated. I failed my senior year in high school, and the only reason I went back was because my Irish grandmother just put the guilt on me. Like, I sure would like to see someone walk the stage before I die. Like, you're gonna sentence me to another year of this shit because okay. Ugh. So I did it, and I went back, and I was able to graduate. But I think I graduated with a 1.7.
That's what I got my first year of college. I was a horrible student. Horrible.
Yeah, I just knew too at that time there wasn't any way to learn this other than to get around it, and I wanted to do it. I wanted to be a stand-up from the time I was sneaking my dad's records, Richard Pryor records and George Carlin records and Bob Newhart records. And then when I saw Gleason, I was a little fat kid, and I saw Gleason, and I said, "You can be cool and fat. I'm in. This is my deal, man. This is my deal." So I knew right away I needed to do this. And I love comics. I root for comics. I just think I certainly respect even more the guys that'll walk out on the edge, because they leave the outfield open for the rest of us to play in. They kind of watch the wall for us. And I admire that. Early on, I was really the edgy guy, and I was really? I was trying to be angry because I thought that those were the coolest guys that I liked, But then I realized I had to find out who I am, and I'm John Candy. I'm Jackie Gleason. I'm a teddy bear, man. You know what I mean? And once I embraced that, I found my version of sarcasm and what I liked, and so I knew right away that I was going to have to get around it. I didn't know how to get around the comedy scene. So, I knew I wasn't going to college. So I just figured, because I'm like, I got a 1.7, basically white trash, growing up, no money. And so there's just no opportunity. Nobody's handing us nothing. And that's great. That was a great thing. But I knew what I wanted to do, which I now that I'm 50, you look back and you realize, wow, knowing what you wanted to do early was a gift, because there's a lot of people go through many years, never figure it out. They never figure it out. So I knew, and my big solution was, when I was 17, I went to these open mic nights, but then there was two Sicilians and a Greek that ran this club, the Sanfilippo brothers and George Maltezos. And they were wonderful. It was a great education, because they hired me at the club, I think for $150 under the table, cash, every week. And that just meant that I did everything.
That's a lot at the time. Yeah.
I thought I'd hit the lottery.
Yeah,
I mean, I was like, what? And I would clean the club. I would clean the toilets. Later that night, I'd be hosting. I'd be seating people. I'd be answering the phone, booking office parties. And I just knew if I got around, I didn't know how to go about it, but I knew if I got around it, I was going to get an education. And one of the great things back then was, our open mic night, like the guys showed up to watch other headliners. Like guys showed up to watch other headliners so that you could learn how to do this. You know what I mean? And it was fun. It was like one of us would get to MC for the weekend. You'd MC Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. But if you weren't MCing, like you were down there in the club at least one of those nights, just sitting in the back, watching. Like, okay, what's this guy gonna do, or what's this girl gonna do, or how are they doing their thing? And to me, that was just that was the most joy I think stand-up brought me, was that beginning of how can you do this and make a living? How can you do this and not be in a cubicle? How can you do this and make rent? You know what I mean? I just thought if I could do those things, I'd be good,
Yeah. Were there any women when you were starting? Like, I know there probably were some, but was it?
Yeah.
That's a long time ago, so I'm curious.
Yeah. We had a couple local women that were very funny. There was a young lady named Denise DeWitt who was funny, and there was a giant woman. She must have been 6'5". I mean, just
wow.
Unbelievable. I 6'4". I don't know. Maybe I was 17, so she might have been 12 feet tall to me back then. But,
she was probably 5'4".
Her name was
I'm joking.
Her name was Alexandra, and she was funny. And we had some girls that were hanging around that were funny and doing the gig. And back then, the big female comics were Rita Rudner, Elaine Boozler, and I'm trying to think, Margaret Smith. Was big, and so I got to see all those people come through a club with I don't think we sat more than 150 people in that club. And then, but the comics that came through, like Bill Hicks was in that small club. Sam Kinison came through there. And then some of the great New York comics who I still love.
I loved him.
Ben Creed and Rich Voss and Kenny Rogerson out of Boston. And you just watch these killers come in and week out. And it just made you, it made you think two things. One, I'm never going to be able to write that good. Two, God damn it, I want to write that good.
Yeah.
So it kind of had it propelled us. You know what I mean? It
inspires you to want to do more and get better. That's how I feel when I watch
without
people.
question. Without question.
Excuse me. Has it always been like therapy for you? Like, were you kind of, as a child or as a teenager, depressed or anxious? Like, did you feel better when you got on stage?
No, Jessica, I have this body because I'm completely well-adjusted. No, I was a train wreck, man. And
in what way? Tell us. That's what we want to hear. No.
Oh, so many ways. I mean, well, look, life was good till about 9. I had 9 good years. That first 9 was unbelievable. I was, growing up in Pittsburgh, 10 years old. Both my teams are in the championship. Everything's good. Then divorce hits my family.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mom remarries a guy that was just, just a goodwill hunting stepfather. I mean, couldn't have been more physically abusive or, just a monster. Mm-hmm. And then she remarried again. And that third guy didn't have a chance because there was no way he was going to build a trust with these 3 kids that had their trust betrayed a million times by the previous guy. So there became all this turmoil. And I was a chubby kid. I got crooked teeth. I'm wearing glasses. And I just knew that there had to be something other than fear and crying. There had to be something other to life than fear and crying. Mm-hmm. And what I found was, once humor seeped into my life that, oh, wait a minute, I can kind of deflect from my shortcomings and I can make other people laugh. And then I fit in. Now I can fit in. And I think that's all I wanted was to just fucking fit in, And then, my mom moved us to Florida because that's where this other husband was going to start a big construction company and there's money to be made in Florida. We were bankrupt in like 4 fucking months. But look, it is what it is. My wife, and I know people hate that phrase, but that's the truth.
It is what it is. I say it every day. That is.
What am I going to do?
It is what it is.
Yeah, but it took me a long time. It took me many, many years to get comfortable with. The thing that changed for me in stand-up where I found my voice was when I stopped trying to be cool and look cool and just started being honest. Because something happened. I found my voice and I found out that especially nowadays and I'm sober for a long time. I'm very lame. And you know what, Jessica? I really like it. I like how lame I am.
Yeah, just being like
my whole youth. Well, my whole youth I spent looking for noise, and now I'm like, well, what's the noise? Get quiet down, everybody. What? Just calm. All we need is calm. And so, but that changed for me. And then once I was able to be honest about my, what I was awkward about, or what I liked, or what I didn't like, or what I believed in, or what I didn't believe in, without pushing it on anybody and just presenting it in a funny way. That's when I kind of found out where my voice was and where my humor lied. And I really it was a relief. It was a relief to not have to be spectacular. I just had to get good at what I do.
How long did it take being a stand-up to get, because before I ask you that, I agree with you 100%, and I don't laugh at anyone who's not real and genuine on stage, because I can tell when they're not, even if they have funny bits, I still will just sit there and stare at them, because I really laugh at the honest, vulnerable stuff. Like that's because it's the truth. How long do you think it took you to get to there?
I used to hear comics say when they came through, they would say, it takes 10 years to figure out your voice. And in 15, you really know how to write for it. I think it probably took me 12 years to get my voice. And then probably a couple years later, I started to get it. And and I started writing about who I am and what I am. And there is a connection between the audience when they hear that honesty.
Yes.
And I'm not saying I'm sitting up there with a handkerchief trying to cure all my wounds. I'm just saying when I tell the truth about something,
Mm-hmm.
I think they know that. And like I do a lot of stuff about being married. I've been married for 20 years.
Wow.
So I see other couples in the audience, and whenever they elbow each other or they look at you, you.
Yeah.
And then I know that I've struck that chord. I've struck that chord, and I know that I'm doing my job.
Yeah, I love that.
That's what I do.
Because it's so relatable. Where did you meet your wife?
I met my wife in Atlanta, Georgia. My manager had a club there for many years, Chris DePetta, called The Punchline in Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
And in the 80s and 90s, it was like the place. It was back in the day, like if you got that club on your resume, remember when you had to have resumes and a headshot?
Yeah, oh God.
If you got your resume, if you had the Punchline on your resume, that meant you could feature everywhere else in the Southeast.
Mm-hmm.
So that was always the club to get. But I met her there. I saw her in a bank, and then I saw her later that night at my show.
Really?
She's just randomly going with her sister to the show. And then I went to a jazz club, which was right around the corner from the place, and they were in there. And then I do this on stage, but this really happened. To me, those are the best ones that you just have to repeat.
Yeah.
Them. You don't even have to write them down. But I saw her in there, and I said, I asked the bartender what she was drinking, and I got one. I took her to her table, and I said, "Hi, I'm Billy. Drink this till I'm cute." And she said, oh, "Wait, no, it's better." Her comeback was better, though. She looked at me. She goes, "I'm going to need another one." I was done for it. That was it. Yeah. What's the joke? But the two comics are walking down the street, haven't seen each other since open mic night, and the one comic goes, "How's it going?" And the other guy goes, "Oh man, it's fantastic. I got a special coming up. I think I got a bit part in a movie. And the career's just really catching fire. How about with you, man?" The guy goes, "Well, I ain't got nothing going on, man. I got a couple one-nighters Saturday and Sunday. Not really looking forward to it." And the other guy goes, "Who books that?"
We're so desperate. Especially now. Oh my God. I would do anything for a Zoom show.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, we all would. I think even people at your level, like who are on TV and have that kind of exposure, still would want to do things, not even because of the money, like I said, but just to be a part of it and
just
do your art.
Do the deal. Exactly. Yeah. And I'm, it's funny. This quarantine's made me miss stand-up. I was starting to burn out a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because, like I said, I've gotten to the point where I don't know if it's lazy or calmer or whatever, but that fire was kind of going out for stand-up. And I respect stand-up more than anything else because it's the live wire. You're out there, and I know that sounds cheesy, but there's truth to it. It's you and them, and there's no walls. Yeah. There's no retakes. There's no cut. Does anybody want a piece of avocado while we move the lights? There's none of that shit. It's live or die every sentence. But I was starting to burn out on it, and I got to say, in quarantine, I've been finding myself writing my notebook again, and I think I have an idea for a new special, and I have a through line. I always start with a through line for my hour, and I think I've figured that out. And so I've started nibbling on it again, and it's brought some excitement back to it.
That's interesting to me, a through line. Like literally, you just said that, and I was like, oh my God, that's such a good idea. When you say a through line, I
didn't used to do that.
Yeah.
But then when I started kind of finding something that I really wanted to say and started building around that, it kind of formed the hour a little better. And I'm a slow writer. My God, it takes me 2.5, 3 years to write an hour.
Yeah.
It takes me that long.
I get it.
Slow,
Yeah. I'm the same way. I don't like come out. I think you're probably, I could be wrong, but I want my jokes to kill. I don't want them to be like,
No,
I want people to be screaming.
I want you to whip your head back and
yes.
I want you to whip your head back, and I want your neck to hurt.
Right.
That's what I want.
I want you to
beat
be
your
hitting
ribs to death.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah. I want you to beat the people next to you when you hear my material.
Yeah.
So that's why it takes me a longer time too, because I don't just put out, like it. I
Some cats can do it though. Some cats are prolific. I'm just not prolific. I mean, I was never a guy that sat down. Like, that's another great gift Tom Rhodes gave me early on, and I've been doing it again, is having a notebook by the side of your hand every minute of the day.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you how much funny shit I've dropped on a floor of a restaurant and never picked up when I left, you know, or was said something while I was traveling and didn't take that minute to write it down. And then you try later and you're like, yeah, that's gone. The train left the station. So
yeah.
I try to keep my notebook with me and just try to write those little thoughts. And I've always been take that thought up on stage and see what happens with it.
Me too.
And record it. And then if there's a couple lines that work, keep those, kill the ones that didn't, try to tighten it up and then add to it. That's always been my process.
That's exactly my process.
Yeah.
And I think everyone's either like us or they sit at a computer and write every single word and like it's meticulous.
I don't know how those guys do that. I'm impressed. Those guys are great construction guys, and I'm not a great construction guy. And I did a special about 10 years ago that I really was proud of, my halftime special. And it was a long time ago, but in that process, I had a buddy of mine, Dan French, kind of helped me a little bit. And he would write these long bits, and then I would take 2 lines from the whole book. Like, he'd written 2 pages, and I'd take 2 lines. He's like, dude, you rip the bones out of the meat. I go, I'm not interested in anything else. It's like you were saying, I just want the good bite.
Me too.
I don't need all the other stuff around it. But I'm learning to try to nuance it a little bit. I'm trying to try something a little different this time. So we'll see. I don't know.
Thank you so much to all of my Patreon members for supporting the podcast.
All right, hold up. Could you take a little off the P's? You're hitting them too hard. Not action.
Thank you so much to all of my Patreon members for supporting the podcast.
Hold on. Now you're whispering Patreon. Is there a reason you're whispering?
Well, you said to take the
somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
You ready? Action.
Thank you so much to all of my Patreon members.
Now you got to pause.
For those of you who don't know, Patreon members, is that okay?
It was perfect. Why'd you stop?
Oh, okay. Patreon members.
Cut. Let's go back to the beginning.
Thank you
and action.
Thank you so much to all my Patreon members for supporting the podcast. For those of you who don't know, Patreon members get early access to the podcast, ad-free episodes, and access to monthly live streams where we talk more about...
All right, let's take it back to the beginning. That was perfect. Do it exactly like that.
I just did it well, though,
Except
but why are you starting over? Thank you so much to all of my patron...
Cut. Why are you screaming?
Because I'm just trying to get through this.
Action.
Thank you so much to all of
Action.
Thank you so much to all of my Patreon members. For those of you who don't know, Patreon members get early access to the podcast.
Perfect. Keep going.
There's so many P's.
Keep going. Keep going.
Ad-free episodes.
You could cut this out, right?
For those of you who don't know, Patreon members get early access to the podcast, ad-free episodes, and access to monthly live streams where we talk more about being relatively sane.
Hold up. Did we agree on monthly live streams?
Yes, you told me I should do them because it'll get more members.
I don't know how to do a monthly live stream.
Don't you just talk in your phone?
We'll figure it out. Come on, let's get through this. We have to go. We should speed this up.
All right. Thank you so much to all my Patreon members for supporting this podcast. For those of you who don't know, Patreon members get early access to the podcast, ad-free episodes, and access to monthly live streams. We don't know what that is, but whatever, where we talk about being relatively sane. If you want to join our fantastic community that is so corny, go to patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. That's patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. That's Patreon.
I think you said patriot.com.
Go to patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. That's patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. Patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. Thanks again.
And cut. That's a wrap.
Ugh. So, and you are on a show again. Like, so you've been
so stupid. What has happened to my life?
It's great. Ridiculous. What, are you kidding me?
Listen, man, it is, I'm a believer in this. I'm a believer in the harder you work, the more your window will stay open if you are presented an opportunity. Opportunity in itself, boy, there's just so much luck involved. And I don't care what anybody else says. That's been my experience. If you have to stand in the right place, have the right guy see you. It has to be the right project. It has to be backed. It has to be the right to get a sitcom be successful. a million things
I agree
have to
with
happen,
you.
right?
Yeah.
And it's so random. You can't, like, if you knew how to do it, everybody would do it. But it's so fucking random. And then the idea that I'm getting a second one that didn't crash and burn 3 episodes into the second try, I'm so grateful for that. I'm really blown away by that. I'm truly blown away. Because usually, if you're on a successful sitcom, the next one you do, they're like, that sucked, and it goes away.
Yeah, that's
so
the whole
I've been
business.
very, 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 very lucky. My wife actually always says, she goes, somebody will come up and go, your husband's very funny. My wife will go, he has a horseshoe in his ass. That's what my husband has. So.
What does she do? What does your wife do?
My wife is such a smart lady. She was a banker when she was very young. And she worked her way up pretty quick and then got kind of sick of that because that's kind of an old boys network.
Yeah.
And she was in Georgia, and being a smart girl in Georgia is tough. And then she just decided she was going to take off and go travel the world. So she started working for Delta for a little while because she wanted a free travel everywhere. And then we met shortly after that. And I told her, I was so in love with her when I met her that I threw this big fit. I said, you can't, long distance relationships don't work. You have to move out here immediately or this isn't going to happen. And then she moved out here and I said, okay. And then I went on the fucking road for 8 weeks. So she wasn't real happy about that. So,
you have to stay here, but I have to get to go wherever I want.
Pretty much. Yeah. So it took a while to make up for that. But she's also a financial whiz, man. And because of her, we have so much, she was so smart. I think I had something after Mike and Molly because 1, I was sober and 2, she was handling the money. Like that was the smartest thing I ever did. Like because of her, my kids' school, there's money put aside for that. The house is almost paid for. We have money we can't touch in retirement till we're 59. But that's all her. Like I would have went through Mike and Molly and like I would have had a dolphin and a hot air balloon and been broke. And like I don't know what happened. I don't know. It was fucking great. And then do you have a saltwater pool? He looks a little,
We're going to eat the dolphin after we take care of it. We're going to fucking eat it. I'm going to make the dolphin drink.
It's so true. It hurts. Oh, Christ. So without her, I'm in a ditch somewhere, man. I'm just in a ditch. And then she gave me a son.
Oh, I know.
And then my life changed. My life, I suddenly knew what was important. I suddenly knew why I was here.
So your son is, how old is he, 17?
16. He'll be 17 at the end of this month. And I got to give him a lot of credit, man. He's doing so good. He had a couple bad days. Being a teenager right now is fucking brutal.
It's horrible. I have a 13-year-old.
The world is screaming at each other. There's so much hatred. Then these kids, their schools are getting shot up. Now they're living through a pandemic. So I don't buy into these fucking young kids don't know how. Hey, man. Hey. I didn't have to go through any of that. I mean, we were broke and things got dangerous once in a while, but this is a weird world for them to function in. And there's no escape for them. They're always electronically bombarded and they have to be to keep up with their peers. So it's tough, but I got to tell you, man, he's been incredibly accepting of what's going on and he's been mature about it. And like I said, he freaks me out. I have to constantly say to him, hey man, I realize you're not me, because I'm always like, did you do your homework? This kid has had nothing but A's and B's since 6th grade. He's never in any fucking trouble. And yet I'm still checking it like, you cutting corners? You skipping? You taking a shortcut? And I'm talking to myself, not him. And I have to realize, you're not me, man. You're a better kid than I was. Apparently, it skips a generation. Your kid's probably going to be a monster. You're racist. So I've been trying to give him connecting online, and I think in a week or 2, we're going to let them a little in the yard if they wear masks and socially distance and be careful. And it's just, I don't know what's next, but I got to say he's been weathering storm probably way better than I would have at 16. I would have already been sneaking out, not listening, coming home, sweating with 103 fever, going, I don't know, maybe it's allergies. I don't know, maybe it's allergies. I would have been paying. It's just that I was an idiot,
You live in LA, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I love Los Angeles.
Yeah,
Really
I
love
do
Los
too.
Angeles.
I love it there. I would wish
I
I
like the
could.
weather. Look, there's a lot of selfish assholes. You know, LA does have its thing. I find that the transplants that come out here, but don't forget where they're from,
Yeah.
are the most enjoyable people to be around. And the natives are great. It's the people that come here and like reinvent this person that they are. That's who you got to kind of steer clear from. You know what
That's
I mean?
so true.
But my favorite city is where you live. New York's breaking my heart right now.
I know.
I'm
It's
so for them.
unbelievable.
I'm praying for the scientists every night. That is the greatest city ever. As a performer, there's no better place, man. And New York kicked my ass.
Mm-hmm.
I was up there for like 2 years from 92 to 94. I was mostly a road comic. I was always driving, and I had like an Oldsmobile and a pork pie hat and a bag of weed, and I was just wandering the country. Everything was fine for me. But I tried to be in New York for a couple of years, man, and I admire any comic that can keep it going in New York City, because that city whipped my ass. And it was good because it was at a time where I needed it to find out who I was. You know what I mean? It sent me packing to Florida penniless, but there were some experiences that I had in New York that I would never trade. It made me a better comic. It made me a smarter comic.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is the best experience? I don't mean show. I know there's probably so many, but what would you say is the best experience you've had, or one of the best in the business?
Just being in the business, I'll tell you one of the coolest nights I ever had. On Mike and Molly, Jimmy Burrows was our director, and he's a legendary director of Cheers and Taxi and Friends, and you know, he did the pilots for Big Bang Theory, 2.5 Men. I mean, Wings. I mean, it's like working for that guy's like catching a unicorn. He's the most. Here's the thing I love about him too. He's the kindest soul I have ever met, and yet here's a guy who is the top of the top. So to me, not only was he a great teacher, but he was a great example of you can really have it all and not be a douchebag. And that was powerful to see. And we had him for 2 years, and we got to be good friends. And I think he liked me because everybody else on Mike and Molly, like Melissa, had gone to college and groundlings trainings in Illinois, and then out here in Los Angeles with the ground. Katie Mixon was, you know, she graduated Carnegie Mellon, and Reno Wilson, my partner, he went to the Fame School in New York.
Wow.
And Niambi was like a Shakespearean trained actor. And then here comes this, you know, fat weirdo who's coming out of fucking comedy club kitchen. I'm like, can't do it. I want to be in show business too. And he really took to me, and he was so kind with me. He gave me so many cool things. But one night, man, he knew I was a big Bruce Springsteen fan. And one night, one afternoon, he has this young kid shadowing him on the set who's maybe interested in directing or whatever. He's just shadowing. His name's Sam. And so I start calling him Mayday Malone, which is a reference to Sam Malone and Cheers, right? And the kid didn't quite know who that was, and we explained it.
Yeah.
And we had fun with this kid all day long. So we're sitting at the diner, and Jimmy goes, tell Billy what your dad does. And he goes, well, my dad's in music. I go, oh, really, man? Is there anything I might have heard? And he goes, yeah, his name's Bruce Springsteen.
Oh,
and I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, that's my dad, man. I was like, wow, man, how cool was that? So that night we're taping, and right before the taping, Burroughs walks up to me and he goes, hey, I want you to meet Sam's dad. And he turns, and Bruce Springsteen's standing right there. Jessica, I wish I could say, and then me and Bruce talked about the way America has devolved. I looked like a child who had hot water thrown on him. I didn't know.
I know, it's the worst.
To do.
You're like,
and he was
hi,
so
Bruce.
Yeah, I had nothing. It was so uncool.
Yeah.
But he was very kind. And then that weekend, Jimmy Burrows invited me and my wife up to his house. And when we walked in, Bruce and Patty were sitting there, and we got to have dinner, and I brought my son, and we got to hang with them all night. I got to talk with him as a father, and I got to just be normal with him. And at the end of the night, I thanked him. I said, man, I go, thank you so much for not being a douchebag. I go, it would have killed me. I go, I would have had to thrown so many of your records away. I go, it would have ruined soundtracks of my life. Thank you for having been so cool. and they were really cool. And that's a moment. I'll share a moment with you. This is what killed me. When me and my wife were a young couple, we used to put on Springsteen, usually the Tunnel of Love album, and we would clean the apartment, our little 2-bedroom apartment out here, and that would be it. And there was always a song that on there that I would stop and I would just grab my wife and we would dance.
Oh, I love that.
And so here's what happens. So
I'm gonna throw
my
up.
wife is talking to Bruce at one point. Okay, and I don't know this conversation's going on, and apparently she tells him that story. So now, later in the evening, we go into the living room in Burroughs' house, and there's a piano there. And Jimmy pushes Bruce to the piano. He goes, "Play something, honey, play something." And so he sits down, and his wife sits down next to him, and then he looks at my wife, and he goes, "Oh, I know." And he played our song.
Oh my!
He and my wife stood there like idiot. I swear, Jessica, we both started. We're both bawling, man, and we couldn't even talk on the way home. I'm like, how did that just happen to a couple of kids like that? Like, how did that? So that was probably one of my favorite since my career started.
That's a huge story. That is insane.
You're like, I mean, you can't believe something like that would happen to you. You know, and we were just in awe. We drove home silent. We didn't know what else to say to that. You know, it was crazy. It was very cool. That was one of my favorite.
And what do you think was the most disappointing thing that you've gone through, like in the business? I don't mean like a show experience, but something you really wanted that didn't work out.
Yeah, I had a year in 2003 where I was reoccurring on a show called Yes Dear. And Greg Garcia, who's the producer of that, he put me on My Name is Earl, and he's another one in this business. I've been very blessed to work with very good and kind people my whole career. I just have an angel on my shoulder. I don't know why. God's just looking out for me. And I got this gig, and they allowed me to be a reoccurring character, but I did this 13-episode show called Lucky on FX, and it was about 2 years before the World Series of Poker. If we had come in a little bit earlier, I think we would have had a big train ride, but we missed. We were a little early. But it was me, Craig Robinson, Ever Carradine, and Craig Robinson. And me and Craig were like, this was our first thing together. We were our first real like series that was going to go. And we did 13 of them. And the head of that network, they had just done The Shield, and we were coming right behind The Shield. And at the end of that run, we get nominated for a Best New Comedy Emmy.
Wow.
A week later, I get an offer from David E. Kelly, because I'd done a guest starring thing on The Practice, and he says, "I'm doing this new thing called The Brotherhood of Poland, New Hampshire." Now that's a CBS show. It's a big hour-long thing. So I go to the head of FX and I say, "Hey, can I take this thing and then do our thing because the schedule will work?" And he goes, "No, man. I need you to be focused on our show. I'll take care of you next year, please. I can't have that right now. We're just going to keep you exclusive." I was like, okay. Then I got offered something else on Comedy Central. I think it was either the Man Show or something like that, where I was in the mix for a minute. They wouldn't let me either. So, which I would have liked, because that would have just been a fun thing to do. But I had to say no to both of them because FX wouldn't let me out of any of that. Then the head of that network took the job at NBC, and he left our network. So now I've said no to 3 jobs, and he's gone. And the new guy comes in and he kills our show. So that one year, I lost the series that was supposed to take off, 3 series, and then I'm, back in St. Louis at the Fun like we do.
Isn't that incredible?
That was a hard one. That was a hard one. Yeah. But you keep grinding. I mean, you can't stop. Like my buddy used to always say, it's the biggest casino in the world. You just got to stay at the table. And so you're going to get beat up, and then you're going to win. So just stay at the table. So it was hard. I quitting every April. If there was no pilot, it was tax time. I was like, "Nah, I'm quitting. This is it. This is the last
If there's
year."
no pilot and it's tax time, I totally get what you're talking
about.
No
pilot and it's tax time. I'm done. Get this. I'm going back. I'm going to get on the radio. I've had enough. So, but luckily I stayed just long enough.
I get it. I mean, so, well, I, a lot of it is your positive attitude and the work that you do on yourself because I know when I'm doing more work on myself, things are,
What a chore.
I know it's, what do you do like on a daily? Because before we go, because I know that you do a lot of work on yourself and you do service with other people and help people out. And what do you like each day? What is your way of dealing with what's going on in the world and anxiety and depression? Like, what are there things you do? Do you meditate? What are your things?
I do a little bit. I've never been able to meditate for longer than about 3 minutes because then the chatter just starts. It always sounds like an orchestra tuning up. And I have trouble getting that thing quiet. But what I've learned, man, is if I'm thinking of on a service plane, like you talked about it, then I don't have time to think about me. And I have to fill some of my day with that because my mind runs and it's always a bad ending, no matter what I'm thinking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the other thing I try to do is I always in the morning, I try to pump the brakes, like just be here. Just try to be here today. Because if I get in the time machine, I'm going to be terrified about the future or I'm going to lament the past. What did I miss? What didn't I do? What could I have done differently? You can't fix that. That film's through the camera. Tomorrow isn't written yet. What I do have is the next 12 to 15 hours in front of me. And when I'm doing that, I live a pretty calm life. When I get away from that, that's when anxiety ramps up and maybe impatience or anger. I find myself arguing with people and I shouldn't. And I realize that I can't afford that. I just can't afford that. So my thing every day is to try to get present. Another thing my buddy always says is stay where your feet are, man. Stay where your feet are. So if I can get there, then I got a chance to just go through today. And then I can start having a list of things to be grateful for. I'm able to help my family. I'm able to help my extended family because I've had some success. I'm indoors. There's food in the fridge. The lights are on. My family's healthy. Nobody's screaming at each other. So I have to do those little steps every day to get to normal. And then if I can stay there for the day, I'm grateful. And at the end of the day, I say, all right, man, thanks for another one. And I'll see you in the morning. I don't know the plan, but fuck it, I'm in,
Yeah,
that's what I try to do.
I love what you're saying because so many people are struggling with being in the moment, including me. It's so
fucking hard
to not forget about the past. I don't even have time. I'm so worried about the future. So if I don't take my mind off of me and my self-obsession, like you're saying, and just try to help someone else, or even if I'm in my head and going crazy, I'll try to text someone or call them and see how they're doing or whatever it is, because it takes me out of.
Well, what I find is that obsessive cycle. There's an obsessive circle. Like normal people, what I've learned just on the work I've done on myself is normal people, they have a weird thought and then it like passes through them. When you have an obsessive mind, you get on that thought and now that's just going to become a movie for the rest of the day. And it's going to block you from your family. It's going to block you from your friends. It's going to block you from work. You can't. So something has to break that circular current. And what I've found is service usually does that. And when I can get that, then I break the circuit and then I don't have to be trapped by my own horse shit for the day.
I
Sorry,
love
that's
that.
A long answer.
No, I love it. It's so important right now, especially for now, how a lot of people are feeling. A lot of fans have reached out to me and friends, and it's just people are really scared and in fear and in the future. And it's just like, especially with this, it's like, who the fuck knows what's going to happen? When is it ending? It's such a strange feeling.
It's the weirdest thing I think any of us will experience in our lifetime. And I'm praying for smart answers, for calm answers, reasonable answers. And like I said, I'm praying that the scientists can outrun the chaos. That's my prayer every morning is God, let the scientists outrun the chaos. Let people be able to survive this, to get back into the world. And our frontliners and the nurses and the doctors and firemen and the cops that are fighting for this thing to keep us sane and keep the stitches of society together. Fuck, I pray for the grocers.
Yeah,
those
me
kids,
too.
I got to tell you, that's as brave as you can get. Just, You don't know who's coming into a grocery. Like if I had to do that, I don't know that I could. Maybe, I don't know.
They also have people complaining and yelling.
So I just pray for the scientists to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
No, they have people that sometimes get very hostile with them and scream at them. And it's like, I mean, it's just people are really losing their mind. I mean, even before this, way before this ever started, just that entitlement and it's like simple kindness. So a lot of people just stopped being respectful of other people. It's really interesting.
There's been a loss of decency, and that's because we've been so divided. And you know, unfortunately, you in this country now, you can listen to whatever you want to believe. You don't have to listen to facts anymore. You can just, whatever you choose to believe, there's a channel for that. So I think we have to rise above that and work on decency again and accepting hard truths. Part of recovering anything, any psychologist will tell you, part of recovering is accepting an uncomfortable truth. If you can't accept an uncomfortable truth, you have no fucking chance of changing. You cannot change the tide without that. And that's a tall, man.
I know. I really understand. I'm just so grateful that you did the podcast. I think the world of you. Man. I know you and I connected. The second we met, we connected, and I felt it. You know, I always know. I'm like, oh, I'll stay friends with that person, or I won't. But I'm very.
I got a pretty good spidey sense too. And I'm a fan. I'm a fan of yours.
I'm a fan of yours, Billy. You're so great. I wish you all the best. We'll talk soon. And thank you for doing this, and thank you for being so honest.
All the best to you and your family, man. All the best.
Thank you. Take care. Talk soon.
Anytime, Jessica.
Okay.
Anytime. I remain a fan. Hold on. I want to let you know.
I'm waiting. I'm going to listen to it. I need to hear this.
Person. You're a genuine good person, man. I felt that immediately when I met you, and I wish you continued success. I think you're a talent, and I think your spirit is great. And like I said, I wish you all the best. I really do.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Talk soon.
Yeah, man.
Bye.